Hi guys, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if this is your first time coming across my channel, my name is Nancy. In today's tutorial, we'll be learning how to make this stylish A-line dress with a cowl neck design. So if this is a design you're interested in learning, let's get started. The name of the fabric I used is called a Duchess fabric, and I made use of 3 yards. So the length of a Duchess fabric is usually 60 to 61 inches, but my desired dress length is 64 inches. So the length of this fabric wouldn't be enough to achieve my desired length. For this reason, I won't be folding my fabric from the width. So this simply means that I'll be folding my fabric from the length of the fabric, making sure that the selvage on both ends of the fabric meets each other. So take note that if your dress length is not as long as mine, then you don't have to fold it this way. You should fold it the regular way we usually fold our fabric. So after folding the fabric into two equally, I further folded the fabric into two again. So I practically folded this fabric into four. And after cutting out my design, I would have both the front piece and the back piece of my dress cut together. Because of the texture of the Duchess fabric, I'll go ahead to pin the folded fabric together so the weight of the fabric doesn't pull or shift the fabric. So the first step is to mark the full length of the dress from the bottom of the fabric. So I want my dress length to be 63 inches. So I added extra 1 inch sewing allowance to the hem, which made it 64 inches altogether. And I went ahead to rule a straight line across this point. After that, I will adjust the fabric so I can mark the starting line of the dress, which is also called the shoulder line. Take note that for this tutorial, I won't be using my ruler all the time because I noticed that when using the ruler to rule directly on this particular Duchess fabric, it causes the fabric to squeeze. From this side of the fold, I would place the tape on the shoulder line to mark the neck width. And since I won't be including a zipper on this dress, I would mark a neck width of 3.5 inches. For a plus size person, you should mark a neck width of 4 inches. And for the neck depth, I marked 1.5 inches. So I connected the neck width to the neck depth to form a curved neckline. The next step is to mark the shoulder measurements. My shoulder measurements divided by 2 is 7 inches. So I added extra half-inch allowance, which made it 7.5 inches altogether. Now I placed the tape below the shoulder point to mark 1 inch, then connected the point to the neck width to form the shoulder slope. To mark the chest line, I divided my bust circumference divided by 6 and I added extra 1.5 inches allowance to that. And then I got 7.2 inches. Now I placed the tape on the tip of the shoulder slope vertically downwards to mark 7.2 inches. Now I connected the tip of the shoulder slope to this point. Then I went ahead to rule a straight line across this point, and this new line is called the chest line. On the armhole line, I placed the tape to mark the midpoint of the armhole. On the midpoint of the armhole, I went in by half-inch to connect the point to the tip of the shoulder slope and to also connect the midpoint to the chest line in order to form the armhole curve. Now from the shoulder line, I'll go ahead to mark my waistline, which is 15.5 inches. The next line is my hip line, which is 25.5 inches. The next line is the knee line. To get the knee line, I'll be marking a distance of 8 inches from my hip line. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and then I'll go ahead to rule across the points. So this line is for the knee line measurement. So the next line is for the full length of the dress, which we already marked when we started the markings on this fabric. On the chest line, I placed my bust circumference divided by 4. And because there is no zipper on this dress, the dress is not supposed to be fitted. So I went ahead to add extra 2 inches sewing allowance to the side. On the waistline, I placed my waist circumference divided by 4 and I added extra 2 inches allowance to the side. Then I connected the bust circumference to the waist circumference. On the hip line, I placed my hip circumference divided by 4 and I added extra 2 inches sewing allowance to the side to connect the waist circumference to the hip circumference. The next step is to mark the knee circumference. To do this, I would place the measuring tape on the waistline to take the measurements with the sewing allowance included, and that is 9.5 inches. Now I place that 9.5 inches measurement directly on the knee line to mark. Then I'll go ahead to add just 1 inch sewing allowance to the side. Now I'll connect my hip circumference to the knee circumference. And the next step is to connect the knee circumference to the M circumference. Now, to get the M circumference, I decided to use a wideness of 15 inches so I can walk properly. Wow, so I just noticed that the M line wasn't showing properly in this clip, but take note that I marked a M circumference of 15 inches. For a plus size person, your M circumference should be as wide as 18 inches. Now I went ahead to mark my knee circumference to the M circumference, and this automatically formed an A-line shape. So after that has been done, I went ahead to add ½ inch sewing allowance to the top of the shoulder slope. So obviously the neckline for the back piece is ready. So we need to make the cow neckline for the front piece. Now to make the cow neckline, I'll be showing you the simplest method I decided to use in order not to waste my fabric. And I hope this method will be useful to you as well. So you see this section from the shoulder slope to the chest line is very important at this stage. I need to trace out exactly the same shape from that shoulder slope to the chest line. So what I did was to place a transparent paper, as the chalk below the paper would be visible for me to easily trace out exactly the same shape from the shoulder slope to the chest line. Now I would pin the paper by the end of the armhole to the fabric, after which I can easily adjust the paper. So depending on how deep you want the neck depth to be, you'd keep adjusting the white paper. So I want the deepness of the neck depth to be 7 inches. I would advise you to stick with 7 inches or 6.5 inches, but anything higher than 7 inches will expose your cleavage. Alright, so I'll be working with a neck depth of 7 inches from here. I went ahead to pin the paper directly on the fabric so it doesn't shift. The next step is to mark the neck width of the cowl neckline. So from this template, I'll go ahead to mark the neck depth, and then I'll use my straight ruler to connect the neck width to the center fold of this fabric, making sure that, so obviously this line is also ruled across the neckline on the template. Now I'll connect the dots properly. So after this has been done, I'll go ahead to trace out the shoulder slope and the armhole curve from the template. Alright guys, so this is the cowl neckline for the front piece of the dress. So I would unpin the template because I'm through with it. All right. So the next step now is to trim out the cowl neckline first. Remember that this fabric is folded into two. So we are cutting both the front piece and the back piece of the fabric. So I am trimming out the cowl neckline first so it doesn't affect the back piece of this dress.
I can feel it everywhere. It's funny how things change in an instant. Doesn't take much thinking, but everyone can feel the air. Do you know I'm fading, fading from you? I can't say it, I hate the truth. Doesn't take much thinking, but everyone can feel the air. Do you know I'm fading, fading from you? I can't say it, I hate the truth.
Now I'm going to unpin the fabrics to take out the inner piece which I would be using as the front piece of my dress. Now I'm left with this single piece. Now I would go ahead to trim out the neckline of the back piece, the shoulder slope, and the armhole as well. Alright, so the back piece of the dress is ready. So this is how the neckline of the front piece would be when the dress is worn. The next step is to cut out it facing for the neckline of the front piece of this dress. So I placed this on my fabric to cut out exactly the same shape, and the length of the facing is about 14 inches, just in case you need to know the length I used. After this, I'll take this to the sewing machine to stitch the neckline by half inch following the direction of the chalk. And for the back piece of the dress, I would be cutting out a facing for the neckline as well. I'll take this to the sewing machine to stitch the neckline by half inches following the direction of the chalk. Now I'm going to flip the facing of the front piece to the wrong side of the fabric. The next step is to pin the edges of the facing to the edges of the front piece as shown. So the neckline for the front piece has been properly secured. Now for the back piece, after stitching the facing, I went ahead to notch the seam allowance and then I top stitch directly on the right side of the facing. Now I'm going to attach the shoulder of the back piece to the shoulder of the front piece by half inch. I'll go ahead to attach the second shoulders together, making sure that the facing is on each other and the shoulder of the dress is on each other as well. After stitching the shoulders together, this is how the facing should be. So for the back piece, you can go ahead to weave the edges of the facing on the back piece, or better still, you can use an hemming gum to secure the edges properly. Now the next step is to place the right side of the front piece directly on the right side of the back piece as shown. So I'll go ahead to pin the sides of the dress together.
I can feel it everywhere. It's funny how things change in an instant. Doesn't take much thinking, but everyone can feel the air. It's funny how things change in an instant. Doesn't take much thinking, but everyone can feel the air. Do you know I'm fading from you? I can say it. I hate the truth.
So before going further to stitch the sides of this dress, I need to make the loops which would be attached to the waist of this dress. So this is the strap, which is 1.5 inches wide and the length is 20 inches. Now I'll go ahead to fold the edges in by 1/2 inch and then fold it directly on each other to stitch the edges down to the end. Alright, so the strap is ready. I want the length to be 4 inches long, so I'm just going to go ahead to place this strap that has already been cut to cut out the rest of the straps I need. So I actually need just 4 loops, so this is fine. To know where the loops would be attached to, I placed the measuring tape from my shoulder down to my waistline. My waistline is 15.5 inches, so I'll just go ahead to rule a straight line. Alright, I'll pick one of the loops and then fold it into 2 equally. Now I'm going to insert it in between the front piece and the back piece, directly on the waistline here, to pin it together. I would also fold the second loop into 2 to insert it in between the front piece and the back piece, directly on the waistline, to pin together. To insert the other 2 loops, I would mark 1 inch above the waistline on both sides. Now I folded the third loop into 2 to insert it in between the front piece and the back piece. Then pin this together. I'll go ahead to insert the fourth loop. So the next step is to secure the sides of the dress by 1 inch, following the direction of the chalk. After securing the sides of the dress, the next thing I did is to notch the knee allowance so that you can easily iron your dress properly and for the A line to be pronounced. Now I'm going to turn the dress to the right side of the fabric. The next step is on how to make the sleeve for this dress. So first of all, I would be placing the measuring tape on the armhole to measure the armhole circumference. Here I have it to be 8.5 inches for my armhole circumference. For the sleeve, I folded the fabric into 2 and then I went ahead to rule the starting line. From the starting line, I placed my tape vertically downwards to mark the cap sleeve line. And on the cap sleeve line, I placed the armhole circumference that I measured from the dress, which was 8.5 inches. And then I connected that point to the tip of the starting line to form a slant line. Now I placed the tape on the slant line to mark the midpoint. I would extend the midpoint 1/2 inch above the slant line to meet the tip of the starting line and 1/2 inch below the midpoint to meet the armhole circumference. After I've done this, I would add extra 1 inch sewing allowance to the side of the armhole circumference. Now you should take note that this is a bell sleeve. I want my sleeve length to be 25 inches, so I added extra 1 inch allowance, which made it 26 inches altogether. Now on the sleeve opening, I marked 11 inches because I don't want the sleeve to be too wide. Then I connected that point to the armhole circumference. Now at the tip of the line here, I marked ½ inch to make a little curve in order to eliminate the sharp edges that is supposed to be there if the curve isn't there. Alright, so I went ahead to trim out my sleeve following the direction of the chalk. Then I'll place this on my main fabric to cut out the second sleeve. So I've been able to cut out the second sleeve. Now I'm going to go ahead to spread out one of the sleeves to stitch the hem of the sleeve by folding it ½ inch in and further folding it by ½ inch, and I'll do the same for the second sleeve. I've secured the hem of the sleeve. I folded the sleeve into two, then took the sleeve to the sewing machine to stitch the edges by 1 inch, and I'll do the same for the second sleeve. Now I'm turning the sleeves to the right side of the fabric and both sleeves are ready. The next step is to stitch the armhole of the sleeve to the armhole of the dress. Alright, so the sleeves has been properly attached. And the next step is to stitch the hem of the dress by folding it ½ inch in and further folding it by ½ inch. So the hem of my dress is properly secured, and the final step is to make a strap for the loops at the back of this dress. The width of the strap is 1.5 inches while the length is 60 inches. If you're a plus size person, you can make the length of your strap longer than mine. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to fold the top of this strap in by ½ inch and to fold the sides of the strap in by ½ inch, and then further fold it on each other, so the starting of the strap would be very neat. Now I'll take this to the sewing machine to stitch to secure the edges of the straps, and when I get to the end I would also fold the bottom of the strap in by ½ inch and then the sides by ½ inch, then further fold it on each other. So this is the straps, and the final step is to pass the straps into the loops. Alright, so this is the final outcome of this dress. I hope this tutorial was helpful. You should give it a try, and if you are new to my channel, please kindly subscribe, share and like my tutorials, and also put on your notification bell to be notified when I upload new tutorials so you don't get to miss any of my tutorials. Thank you and see you in my next tutorial.